Hello, William here again, and welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me for this week's project video. Now, a couple of weeks ago I was very honoured to have been in the company of Mark Sanger again at a demonstration at Yandles. Now, as most of us will be aware, Mark has a penchant for turning wet wood. Now, when you turn wet wood, normally you would rough turn it, leave it to dry for a couple of months, come back and finish it. Now, me being quite an impatient person, I'm going to try and turn this piece of wet ash and dry it and finish it in one day using the microwave technique that I've demonstrated before. But before we get stuck into the project, I'd like to do a shout out, not for some people, but for two books. Now, the first book was actually written by Mark Sanger himself, and it's entitled Turning Hollow Forms. It is an extremely useful book. I've been through it and read it twice since I've had it in a couple of weeks. It gives very detailed information on the design, the proportioning and shapes of different hollow forms. The book basically sets out all the practical knowledge that you need to get started with turning hollow forms. There are sections on understanding wood and analysing the form. There's a very comprehensive chapter on health and safety, which we should all be aware of course. The book includes 7 unique hollow form projects presented in order of challenge or in order of difficulty. And it also includes templates that you can scan or cut out and use for your own projects. Now, this book is current and still in print, but I'll put the ISBN in the description in the video. Now, the second book, Woodturning, a source book of shapes, was produced by John Hunnix. Now, John's book is very useful for people like me that are adequate technical turners but lack the artistic talent to come up with original ideas. So the book contains 118 colour photographs of different shapes or forms broken down into 9 different categories. Now, John Hunnix was a photographer by profession and did all of these photographs. Being a wood turner and a photographer, what a great combination, eh? But I always struggle with my photographs. Now, I'm not sure if this book is still in print because it was originally published in 1993, but I will check and provide the ISBN. I bought this one second hand from Amazon. Okay, to start off this project we need to find the centres at either end, get it mounted on the lathe between centres and get it roughed out. Now, having got this piece roughed out, I did measure the moisture content and surprisingly it showed only 18 to 20%, which is much less than I'd anticipated. Now, I had anticipated about 25 to 28% since the tree has only been down for less than a year. I guess this means that I have less drying to do in the microwave a little later. Now, one of the consequences of the very hot summer we had here in Somerset last year is the fact that a lot of my wood shows stress and cracking despite the fact that it was processed promptly, the end sealed and stored out of the sun. This piece of wood is not an exception, and you'll notice that the thin superglue comes out on more than one occasion during this video. Now, I'm starting the excavation process using one of my most favourite tools, which is Simon Hope's 6mm mini hollowing tool. Once I get beyond the reach of this tool, I move on to the Crown Cryo MIDI hollowing system. Now, I've had several outings with this particular tool, and quite honestly, I struggle to get a good cut with it. Now, for sure, it's me and my poor technique and not the tool, because I've seen some people, including Mark Sanger himself, use this tool to great effect. Now, more recently, I purchased from Simon Hope a handle which takes the 19mm bars from my Hope Easy Arm hollowing system. This means that I can use the 6mm cutter and the scraper that comes with the Easy Arm system freestyle using this handle. Now, using this combination, it only took me less than 2 minutes to finish the excavation. So before we move across to the microwave for drying, I'm just going to mark the 2 reference points on the piece here for number 1 jaw. Okay, start weight is 676. So we have to lose 10% of that to get down to around 10%. So that's 67, which is 609. So 609 grams is our target figure. So we're giving it 40 seconds at 40%, then going to rest it for 2 minutes and then do the same again until the weight comes down to 609 grams or it falls to pieces. Warm. Okay, after 5 sessions we're down to 635. That's about halfway. Now, after 22 iterations of this drying cycle, the weight of the piece came down to 610 grams, which is indicative that the moisture content should now be around 8 to 10%. Now, having mounted the piece back on the lathe again, we can see that actually it hasn't moved very much at all during the drying process. Now I'm continuing to reduce the wall thickness to about 1/4 of an inch, bearing in mind I need to true up the outside as well. Having got the wall thickness approximately correct, I'm moving on to the 23mm scraper, which will give me a very good base to start abrasive work. Okay, here I'm just truing up the outside and trying to get a wall thickness of about 1/4 of an inch. Moving on to my most unfavourite part of any project, abrasive work. In this case I'm going through the grits of 180 to 400. Okay, quick update. I've just tested the wood with a moisture meter after I've completed the sanding, and it's registering between 2 and 8%, which is much lower than I'd anticipated. Anyway, time to think about adding some colour. I do love the colours of Tutankhamun's death mask, the beautiful contrast between the deep blue and the gold. And I'm going to use that colour scheme. Now, the colouring was very messy indeed. I started off with intrinsic colour Midnight Blue because that's what Mark Sanger used. However, it wasn't representative of the colour that I was seeking, so I went over to Chestnut Spirit Stains to the blue. Now, I didn't like that one either, so I put a Chestnut colour Spirit Stain Royal Blue over the top of that. A few applications of this colour, allowing it to dry in between, gave me the results that I was looking for. Now, once I had the external colour looking like I wanted, I turned my attention to some texturing in the lower 1/3 of the outside. Now, I'm planning some circular depressions in the lower 1/3, which I shall recolour blue and add gold gilt over the top. Now, I don't think I have really got the right tools for this job. All I have is this diamond tipped ball attachment I have for my Dremel, and it's not making a particularly good job of it. Once the texturing is completed, I can recolour it with the royal blue stain. Thereafter, I applied several coats of pre-thinned sanding sealer, denibbing between each coat. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to apply some gold gilt cream to the textured area on the base and also to the rim. It's been quite a long time since I've used gilt cream, and here you can see I'm mistakenly applying it using a moving lathe when it's much better applied, at least in my opinion, when the lathe is stationary. Okay, so the outside was finished with Hampshire Sheen High Gloss, and then with a coat of Hampshire Sheen Gold Embellishing Wax over the top of that. The inside was finished with Yorkshire Grit and Yorkshire Grit Microfine, followed by 2 coats of Hampshire Sheen High Gloss. Now, apart from the texturing at the base, I was very happy with the finish on this piece. So the last task then is to turn off the nub at the base of the piece, to sand it down, stain it blue and finish it off with a coat of sanding sealer and Hampshire Sheen High Gloss. Okay, that just about wraps that one up. Do I like it? I'm not sure, you know. I certainly like the gold embellishing wax. The gold embellishing wax is about the best feature of this particular piece. Okay, just a few points about this project. First of all, the drying process using the microwave, which I've used with success before, worked very well. The maths wasn't particularly accurate because when I tested the piece with the moisture meter a little later on in the project, it was reading very low. It was reading 0 in some places, 6% and 8% in others. I don't really have the right tool to do the texturing down the bottom here. Mark Sanger used something called a saber-tooth something or other. I'll have to look that up and see what that is, but certainly this is not up to standard. But apart from that, I think it's okay. I'd like to do one in purple next time with some of Martin's new purple embellishing wax. Okay, thanks very much for joining me, and I hope to see you again next week.